Welcome in, everybody, to our deep dive on the legacy of former President Jimmy Carter.
Yeah,
You've been wanting a deeper understanding of how the nation is remembering him as we mark his final journey to Washington, D.C.
right.
And we've got some pretty interesting material to explore that.
Yeah, it's been incredible to watch
It has.
the outpouring of respect and
Yep, we'll be looking at articles from CBS News and PBS NewsHour,
okay.
as well as a statement from Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Right.
And we're going to go beyond just reporting on the funeral itself
Yeah.
and try to understand what these tributes reveal about how Carter is being remembered not just as a president,
Hmm.
but as a man who lived a truly remarkable life.
Yeah, it's striking, isn't it?
It is.
The timing of Carter's passing on December 29th, 2025 at the age of 100.
Wow.
He was the longest-lived U.S. president,
That's true.
and it really does feel like a significant chapter of American history has closed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that image of his casket making that journey from Atlanta to Washington, D.C. is
Yeah.
incredibly powerful.
Yes.
The articles describe the stop at the U.S. Navy Memorial where he served,
Yeah.
and then that horse-drawn caisson procession through the snowy streets of D.C.
Right.
It's a very visual reminder of the solemnity of the occasion.
And it's not just any funeral.
Right.
Lying in state at the Capitol Rotunda
Right.
is an honor reserved for only the most esteemed figures in American history.
Wow.
Only 35 people have
Yeah.
received this honor,
Okay.
which speaks volumes about the respect Carter commanded across the political spectrum.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see who came to pay their respects at the Capitol.
Yeah,
We've got Vice President Kamala Harris, Senate Majority Leader John Thune, House Speaker Mike Johnson,
right.
even President-elect Donald Trump was there.
Trump's presence is particularly interesting, wouldn't you say?
I think so.
Given his past criticisms of Carter, especially regarding the Panama Canal, it almost feels like an echo of Carter's own approach to leadership, which always emphasized civility and building bridges even with those he disagreed with.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think we're seeing a hunger for that kind of approach in today's political climate?
I think that's a really good point. It feels significant that even with their differences, this tradition of honoring a former president brought them together.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just American dignitaries either.
Right.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is also planning to attend the funeral
All right.
and released a statement praising Carter as an inspirational statesman, leader, and lifelong humanitarian.
That international recognition underscores the impact Carter had beyond U.S. borders.
Absolutely.
It highlights how his work resonated on a global scale, particularly through his work with the Carter Center, which we'll discuss more later, and his Nobel Peace Prize.
While these high-profile figures paid their respects, there were also lines of everyday people
Yeah.
waiting to say their goodbyes. And something that struck me was how many of them focused on Carter's post-presidency work, his humanitarian efforts.
Right.
There's a real sense of admiration for that.
Absolutely. One quote from the CBS News article that really stuck with me was
Yeah.
from a woman who said, "He was a good man. He had honesty, character, and integrity. You don't see that in politicians now."
Oh, wow.
Do you think there's a yearning for those qualities in leadership today?
There's a clear sense of contrast being drawn between Carter and the current political landscape.
Hmm.
People seem to be longing for the qualities he embodied: honesty, integrity, compassion.
Right.
It makes you wonder if, as a society, we've moved too far away from those values in our political discourse.
It's a good question. And it's all the more significant because
Yeah.
Carter's post-presidency work is such a large part of his legacy.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost as if by stepping away from politics, he was able to really define his own path and make a truly lasting impact.
I think you've hit on something important there.
Hmm.
His presidency was, of course, a significant chapter,
Right.
but it's just one part of a much longer story.
Yeah.
After lying in state in the Capitol, Carter's remains were flown back to Georgia on Air Force One for a private service and burial next to his wife, Rosalind, in Plains, Georgia.
There's a beautiful symmetry to that.
Right.
From humble beginnings to the presidency and back to his roots,
That's right.
it's a reminder that his impact extends far beyond his time in office, and it sets the stage for us to really dig into that post-presidency legacy, the work of the Carter Center, Habitat for Humanity, and his broader efforts for peace and human rights.
That's where it gets really interesting, right?
Yes.
Let's dive into that.
Yeah.
What were some of his most impactful achievements in these areas?
Well, when you look at Carter's post-presidency achievements, The Carter Center's work in eradicating guinea worm disease
Oh, yeah.
is a particularly inspiring example.
Yeah.
They went from millions of cases down to near zero,
Oh.
demonstrating how focused effort can make incredible change.
It's amazing what can be accomplished outside the political arena, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It makes you think about how we define success in leadership.
It challenges our assumptions, for sure. Is it about winning elections and enacting policies, or is it about making a real difference in people's lives?
Yeah.
Carter's legacy suggests the latter.
And the Carter Center wasn't limited to disease eradication. They were involved in election monitoring, conflict resolution, and promoting human rights in over 80 countries.
They've been on the front lines of advancing democracy and human rights globally.
Wow.
It's truly remarkable work.
And we can't forget his work with Habitat for Humanity either.
Of course.
The images of him building houses well into his 90s are incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a symbolic gesture.
No.
It was a testament to his dedication to service.
Absolutely. He was truly committed to the cause, putting in the physical labor alongside volunteers from all walks of life.
It's amazing.
It embodied his belief in the power of collective action.
It really makes you think about what it means to live a life of purpose.
Yeah.
So we connect this to the bigger picture. What does it say about the kind of legacy Carter built?
Right.
It seems to go beyond political achievements or policies.
It does. His legacy is rooted in his unwavering commitment to peace, human rights, and service to others. He understood that true leadership extended far beyond the confines of the Oval Office.
And it's inspiring how he did all of this without the power and authority of the presidency.
Yeah.
It was purely driven by his personal commitment to these causes.
Right.
What stands out to you about this part of his life?
You know what strikes me is the contrast between his post-presidential life and the current political climate.
Okay.
It's almost like he existed in a different era.
Yeah.
One where bipartisanship and a focus on common goals weren't just talking points,
Right.
but a reality.
Yeah. I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Here we have President-elect Trump attending Carter's funeral,
Right.
despite their starkly different political views, and Trump's own history of criticizing Carter. It highlights an ability to separate political differences from basic human decency and respect.
Precisely. And then you have the countless stories of Carter working alongside people from all walks of life,
Right.
building houses, advocating for peace and democracy across the globe.
Yeah.
It wasn't about scoring political points.
Right.
It was about making a tangible difference.
It's making me reflect on how we define success in leadership.
Yeah.
Is it about winning elections and enacting policies, or is it about leaving the world a better place than you found it, regardless of your political affiliation?
Right.
Carter seems to embody that latter definition.
And that's what makes him such a compelling figure, even decades after leaving office. He challenges us to think beyond traditional notions of power and influence.
Yeah.
He shows us that true leadership can be quiet, humble, and deeply impactful.
And I think that's why his humanitarian work resonates so strongly with people. It's tangible, selfless, and it transcends political divides.
Exactly. And let's not forget the global scope of Carter's work. The Carter Center tackled issues like disease eradication, election monitoring, and conflict resolution in countries all over the world.
Right.
He was a tireless advocate for human rights and democracy on a global scale.
It's remarkable, isn't it?
It is.
He didn't need the trappings of power to make a difference. He showed us that each of us,
Right.
regardless of our position or background,
Yeah.
has the potential to create positive change.
It is inspiring. It makes you want to go out and do something,
Right.
to find a way to contribute to something bigger than yourself.
It does.
Yeah.
And I think that's the ultimate test of Carter's legacy. Does it inspire us to action?
Yeah.
Does it challenge us to be better, more compassionate, more engaged citizens of the world?
Those are big questions.
They are.
But I think they're the right ones to be asking.
Right.
We can get so caught up in the day-to-day, the political battles, the social media outrage,
Right.
that we lose sight of what really matters.
Carter, in his quiet, unassuming way, reminds us of what's truly important.
Yeah.
Service, compassion, integrity. These are the qualities that endure, the ones that ultimately define a life well lived.
You're absolutely right. Those personal qualities are woven into the fabric of his public life. You can't separate the two.
Yeah.
And it makes his story all the more relatable.
It's
All the more human. He wasn't just a president or a global icon.
Right.
He was a husband, a father, a man of faith, a product of his small-town upbringing.
It makes his story so powerful. It reminds us that even the most extraordinary individuals come from ordinary beginnings, and that each of us has the capacity for greatness in our own way. I've been thinking a lot about that quote from Carter, the one where he said, "I want to be remembered as a president who cared about human rights." It's so simple,
Yeah.
so direct, yet so profound.
That's Carter in a nutshell.
Yeah.
No grand pronouncements,
Yeah.
no self-aggrandizement, just a simple statement of purpose. And he lived by it every single day.
Yeah.
I think that's what resonates with people, even those who may have disagreed with his policies or political views.
Sure.
There's an authenticity to Carter,
Right.
a genuineness that transcends political boundaries.
It's refreshing, especially in today's political climate, where authenticity often feels like a rare commodity.
It does make you wonder, though, what Carter would make of the state of the world today.
Right.
The political polarization, the rise of social media, the challenges facing democracy.
Well,
It's a far cry from the world he entered as a young politician in the 1960s.
that's a question we can only speculate on.
Mm.
But I suspect he would approach these challenges with the same pragmatism, the same commitment to dialogue, and the same unwavering belief and the power of human decency that defined his long and extraordinary life.
And that, I think, is a powerful legacy to leave behind.
Yeah.
Not just a set of accomplishments or policies,
Right.
but a way of being in the world,
Mm-hmm.
a way of approaching challenges,
Right.
a way of seeing the good in others, even when it's hard to find.
Okay, so we've explored Carter's post-presidency work in detail,
Yeah.
touching on the Carter Center, Habitat for Humanity, and his broader commitment to human rights and democracy. We've also reflected on what his life and legacy tell us about leadership, service, and the power of individual action.
Yes.
But I think there's another layer to this story that's worth unpacking.
Okay.
Perhaps we should consider the historical context of his presidency and how that might have informed his later work.
I agree. I think it's important to consider the historical context of Carter's presidency and how it might have shaped his post-presidential path.
Yeah.
What were some of the key events and challenges that defined Carter's time in office?
Well, remember, Carter came into office in the wake of the Vietnam War and the Watergate scandal. Public trust in government was at an all-time low. There was a sense of disillusionment and cynicism that permeated American society.
Yes, it was a tumultuous time. And then you had the energy crisis, the Iran hostage crisis, the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan.
Wow.
It was a really difficult period, both domestically and internationally.
And despite his best efforts, Carter wasn't able to solve all those problems. His presidency was marked by a sense of unfulfilled promises. But even amidst those challenges, he never lost his faith in people, his belief in diplomacy, or his commitment to human rights.
It seems those difficult experiences, both during and after his presidency, really shaped his worldview and fueled his desire to make a positive difference. Perhaps he saw the limitations of traditional political power and decided to focus his energy where he could have a more direct and tangible impact.
That's a really interesting thought. It's like he shifted his focus from wielding power to empowering others.
Exactly. And it helps explain why he poured so much of himself into the Carter Center Habitat for Humanity and other humanitarian efforts. He wasn't interested in building monuments to himself or accumulating political capital. He was driven by something deeper, a belief in human connection and working together to solve common problems.
His legacy is about more than just what he achieved. It's about who he was as a person. And I think that's what resonates with people today. Especially when you consider the current political climate with all the division and polarization, Carter's emphasis on unity and common ground feels almost radical now.
It's certainly a stark contrast. We have President-elect Trump representing a very different style of leadership attending Carter's funeral. It highlights the complexities of American politics, but also the enduring power of tradition and respect, even amidst deep ideological differences.
It speaks to a yearning for a return to those values: civility, dialogue, compromise. People are tired of the constant negativity and fighting.
There's a sense that we've lost something important along the way, a sense of shared purpose. And Carter, in his post-presidency life, embodied those qualities. People are rediscovering their value.
It's like his passing has created a moment of reflection, a chance to ask ourselves what kind of country we want to be and what kind of leaders we want.
And Carter's life provides a powerful answer to those questions. It's not about ideology or party affiliation. It's about character integrity and a commitment to service. It's about recognizing our shared humanity, something that's often lost in the heat of political battles.
Carter understood that we're all in this together regardless of our differences. And he didn't just talk about it. He lived it, building houses with Habitat for Humanity, traveling to conflict zones to promote peace. He dedicated his life to serving others, not himself.
And that's what makes his legacy so enduring. It's about the kind of person he was and the example he set, a reminder that true leadership is about humility, compassion, and making the world a better place.
It's a reminder that each of us has the capacity to make a difference. We don't need to be president or a Nobel Peace Prize winner to live a life of meaning and purpose. So as we wrap up our deep dive into Jimmy Carter's legacy, what's the one thing you want our listener to take away? What's the most important lesson we can learn from his life?
I think the key takeaway is that Carter's life was a testament to the power of service. He showed us that leadership isn't about self-promotion or power, but about using your time and talents to make a positive difference. He challenged us to be better, do better, and leave the world a better place. That's a legacy worth striving for.
Beautifully said. It's a fitting tribute to a man who dedicated his life to serving others. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you've learned something about Jimmy Carter's extraordinary life and that it's inspired you to think about the legacy you want to leave behind.